Today's lesson will cover gastrointestinal processes and controls. And the textbook pages that I'm referencing are pages 476 to 478. Just a reminder that the textbook pages are on the class page in the textbook folder. So you have access to those pages to read and take extra notes if you feel necessary. There are 6 processes that we are going to talk about. And the first process for the GI tract is ingestion. The only way digestion is going to happen is if you put food into your mouth. So you need to ingest food, and this is what we call a voluntary process, and that means that you actually have to do it. Nobody's doing that for you. So you have to put the food into your mouth, and we call that ingestion. The second process is called propulsion, and there's 2 terms that we need to discuss. One is peristalsis and the other is segmentation. And these are the 2 ways that the food is moved through your gastrointestinal tract. Peristalsis we talked about before, and this is what's occurring in your esophagus. That's where we first see it. But it's actually occurring throughout your digestive tract. And we said that they were contractions and relaxations of the muscularis externa in the tissue layers that make up the digestive tract. So peristalsis is something that we've already talked about. But the term segmentation is a term that is probably new. And this actually is happening in the small intestine in addition to peristalsis. So peristalsis is still moving food forward, but segmentation is helping mix the food. So it does, I'm going to show you a diagram in a second. It's going to move food through the small intestine by kind of pinching off part of your intestine and moving food back and forth between those pinched off parts to allow for mixing to occur. And it also helps with absorption. So you can see with peristalsis, the food is continually moving forward. The muscles are contracting and pinching here and moving the food forward. Pinching again, moving the food forward, that's what's showing here. And moving in a forward direction. Nothing is mixing, nothing is going backwards. In segmentation, you still have the pinching off, but you have the pinching off before and after a area where there is food. So what's happening is you have this food in this area, and some of it is going to move backwards into the segment before it, and some of it's going to move forward into the segment ahead of it. That's why you see this lighter brown color here and this darker brown color here. And then that is going to mix together, and when it mixes together it forms this kind of in-between brown color because it's all mixed together, and that's going to move forward. And that's going to continue all through the small intestines. So you've got this segmentation that's going on before and after a little bit of food. Whereas if we go back to the peristalsis, you've just got that pinching occurring behind the bolus of food to just push the food forward. So no mixing occurring there. So segmentation is important for mixing in the small intestines. So that's where that's occurring. I'm going to show you a really quick video that I have embedded into this PowerPoint. You'll also have access to it on the class page, and if you pull the PowerPoint off of the class page, you would have access to it there as well.
Distinct muscular actions of the GI tract move food on its long journey. Wave-like rhythmic muscular contractions push food and digestive materials in one direction along the GI tract. These muscle contractions are called peristalsis. Segmentation is a muscular movement that occurs in the small intestine. The alternating forward and backward movements of segmentation further mix the partially digested food and digested juices and bring this mixture, called chyme, into contact with the intestinal wall.
I hope that little video clip helped explain the difference between peristalsis and segmentation. The next process is mechanical breakdown. Now, mechanical breakdown is a physical process. So what I mean by that is no enzymes. So it's a physical process with no enzymes. That means that the only thing that's happening is the food is being physically broken down. So it's being mixed, it's being made into smaller particles and broken down physically. So no enzymes. So it's preparing food to be degraded, or that means broken down by enzymes. But enzymes are not working in mechanical breakdown. So after mechanical breakdown, it's going to move into digestion. And digestion is where we're taking those large food molecules, and here they're being chemically broken down by enzymes. So carbohydrates that you eat, those long chains of sugars, are going to be broken down into simple sugars. So they're going to be broken down into monosaccharides that can then be digested. And proteins will be, remember, they're long chains of amino acids, so when they get broken down, they'll get broken down into all of those smaller amino acids. And lipids will get broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Remember, they are triglycerides stored or eaten, and they get broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. So remember, you have that 3-carbon alcohol molecule that has the 3 alcohols on it, and that's your glycerol. And then your fatty acid would be a long chain carboxylic acid. And it would be much longer than 3 carbons, obviously, but I don't have enough room. So, they're like 18, 20, 22 carbons long, and they are attached to the glycerides to make the triglycerides, but your body will break those down into the fatty acids and the glycerol molecules for ease in digestion. I meant to say absorption, not digestion. And then in the small intestine, we have absorption occurring. So absorption's occurring in the small intestine, in all of those villi that we talked about, that line, the circular folds, and they are going to absorb all of those nutrients that were just broken down in digestion. And it says transport of the end products from the lumen. Remember, the lumen is just the opening of the digestive tract, and it's going to take the end products in the lumen to the blood, to the lymph system, depending on where it will dissolve and move easier. Things that are water soluble are going to go in the blood. Things that are lipid soluble will go in the lymph. Most of it's going to be taken back to the liver and be processed there, and then whatever's needed by your body will be sent out to your body from the liver. And again, the small intestine is definitely where most of that absorption is taking place. There's really no absorption anywhere else in the body. Maybe some medications like aspirin will get absorbed in your stomach. And then if you had medication that you had to take sublingual under the tongue, it would be absorbed into your bloodstream in that way. But foods and nutrients from the foods that you eat, those are the things that are going to be absorbed in the small intestine. So no other place in the body will there be any nutrient absorption going on. Possibly medication, but not nutrients. And the last thing that's going to happen is anything that's not absorbed into the small intestine and used by the body is going to be eliminated. So it's going to be going through the large intestine, and it's going to be dehydrated, so water will be pulled out of it, and then you will eliminate any of those indigestible things through the anus as feces. So the last thing that's going to occur is defecation. So I want to do a little bit of a review of the 6 processes that we talked about. The first process that we talked about was ingestion. And the only place where ingestion is going to occur is in the mouth. So ingestion is something that you do, you're putting food in your mouth. So ingestion's occurring in the mouth. It needs to be propelled into the pharynx and into the esophagus, and that's happening by peristalsis. So propulsion is occurring in a lot of places. The first place that we're going to see it, though, is in the esophagus. And this is moving food down into the stomach. We'll also see peristalsis in the stomach. We'll also see it in the small and large intestines. So peristalsis is occurring in all of these places. And swallowing is propulsion as well. So we could add that we have swallowing too. And we are going to talk about swallowing tomorrow, and how you swallow and what occurs when you swallow food. So we're going to go into some detail with that. Okay, the other propulsion that we talked about was segmentation. So segmentation would go under here as well. And that's occurring in the small intestine. And really only in the small intestine. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. So we'll just add that there. And then we have mechanical breakdown. Mechanical breakdown, I wouldn't say it kind of is occurring as things are being propelled too. So mechanical breakdown, that's chewing. That's happening in your mouth. So we have chewing. We have churning in the stomach. And the other thing that we have that goes along with mechanical breakdown would be segmentation too, because it is mixing and churning the food in the small intestines. So chewing's happening in the mouth, churning is the stomach, and segmentation, again, only happens in the small intestine. Okay, let's look at digestion. Digestion, remember, this is where we're using enzymes. Mechanical breakdown is just a physical process, no enzymes there. Enzymes are going to be located in a couple different places. We know that we have salivary amylase in the mouth. We have enzymes that are in the stomach, specifically pepsin or from pepsinogens to break down the proteins to start that breakdown, and then lots and lots in the small intestine. So chemical breakdown or digestion is going to occur mouth, stomach, small intestine. That's where you're going to see the enzymes breaking down the nutrients that you ate and breaking them down into where they can be absorbed. So absorption is going to occur in two places in terms of systems that will absorb it. The circulatory system or blood vessels is where it will be absorbed into from the small intestine, and also lymph vessels. Blood vessels take water-soluble, lymph vessels take fat-soluble nutrients. And so those two vessels are in the villi, and they will absorb the necessary nutrients. So your lymph usually are going to take your fatty acids, and the blood will take your amino acids and most of your amino acids, and your carbohydrates, because they're water soluble. And this is occurring in the small intestine. And then the last process we talked about was defecation, and this is getting rid of waste. So this is occurring in the large intestine, to the anus, where the waste gets out of the body. And so those are the 6 processes we talked about, and a little review of where they're occurring and what's occurring with each process. And the last thing we need to talk about is your assignment. I do encourage you to read the textbook pages that go along with each of the videos that I put up on YouTube. And again, those pages are 476 to 478 in your book. There is a diagram, I believe on one of those pages, you notice it on this slide. That same diagram I would like you to complete in, it can be found in the diagram folder on the class page, and it should be named GI Processes and Controls. And so you're just going to fill that in, kind of like a note worksheet, and you can use your textbook to do that because this same diagram is in your textbook. And it'll be good to add that to your notes, and it's a helpful study guide when it's test time or quiz time. And this assignment, this diagram's due in the Dropbox Tuesday. So that's it for the processes. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus and the things that are occurring there, specifically swallowing. So that's what we'll be covering in tomorrow's lesson. Have a great day, guys.